All right, there he is. Come on up. You're the last one for us.
I almost presented for you.
Item number 20, ACA for Jackson. Welcome.
You know it very well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm presenting ACA 4, the Housing Opportunity for Everyone Act. We know that homelessness and housing availability and affordability is one of the most pressing issues facing Californians today. This ACA would increase and stabilize funding for affordable housing in California. We know for sure that on the minds of all of our constituents, on the top of that list is housing. And I remember my first year, Mr. Chair, where you had the ACA affirming that housing is a human right. Everyone has a right to affordable, stable, and healthy housing. And this ACA says it's time for us to deliver. No more excuses why. No more turf wars. We need to deliver because if we are going to fulfill our mission as a state, which is to ensure the health and welfare of the people of California, that cannot be done unless people have the housing that they need to be stable and be on their own path to be able to thrive. With me today to speak in support of this measure is Eric Vasquez from EAH Housing and Mimi Khalili from AG Global Solutions.
Move the bill.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I had good morning on here, but it's now afternoon. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Eric Vasquez, the Education, Advocacy, and Government Affairs Associate at EAH Housing. For nearly 6 decades, EAH Housing has been and remains one of the most trusted affordable housing developers on the West Coast, serving about 25,000 residents across California and the state of Hawaii. And we're here today in proud support of ACA for the Housing Opportunities for Everyone Act with our dear friend and colleague, Assemblymember Dr. Corey Jackson. So for folks who don't know, EAH, our slogan is, "A roof is just the beginning," but it's more than just words for us. It's a promise to our residents, and we try to fulfill that every day. And I think for a lot of us here, we know that it's not a secret that housing affordability is a crisis, and it's reached unprecedented levels. And while we're very appreciative of all the bills and the policies that have streamlined the ability to produce housing, one thing still remains, and it's a lack of funding. We undoubtedly believe that ACA 4 is that path forward. By dedicating a constitutional minimum funding stream of 5% of our state's general fund, this would allow EAH to unlock thousands of new units across our pipeline, providing us with the ability with greater fiscal flexibility with our projects, and a strategic and long-term investment in our communities across the state. A little bit about us. We manage senior, family, veteran, and permanent supportive housing solutions all across the state of California, and in perpetuity, we keep these affordable. For us, ACA 4 is the strong, viable path forward to meet the urgency of this crisis. We do not see this as a temporary fix. We see it as a long-term and bold solution that we hope that this committee takes forward today. And with that, on behalf of the staff of EAH Housing, our residents, we strongly encourage your support for ACA 4 today. Thank you.
Thank you. We're in the home stretch. My name is Mimi Khalili. I'm with AG Global Solutions. I'm here today to speak in strong support of ACA 4. I want to start with something often overlooked. Poverty is not just a statistic, it's a weight that distorts every aspect of a person's life. I lived through it. Growing up in a trailer with rotting walls, without heat in the winter, eating whatever my single mother could afford after working 6 days a week for minimum wage. She had a master's degree, but that didn't stop us from falling through the cracks. For years, we lived where people's good graces were available, moving every year. My story is not unique. It is the story of thousands of Californians who carry the invisible burden of poverty every single day. Housing is the root of so much of this. Right now, California spends less than half of 1% of its state budget on affordable housing, and the state only funds about 12% of what's actually needed to meet its housing goals. That massive funding gap leaves over 1 million low-income households without access to the affordable homes they need. When housing is unaffordable, it doesn't just impact rent. It reshapes the economy, and businesses pay more to offset wages, and small employers can't compete. Companies struggle to attract workers, especially in lower-paying sectors. Economic mobility disappears. People can't invest in education, businesses, or savings because every spare dollar goes to rent. I've lived that reality. After college, I had no career path. I worked part-time retail and slept on the floor of my brother's apartment, dodging roaches and wondering if I'd ever dig out of the debt I had accumulated just trying to survive. But the social impacts of unaffordable housing go even deeper. It drives up homelessness. It forces families to choose between food and shelter. It strains every public service from healthcare to education to emergency responses because housing instability makes everything else harder to fix. It breaks down community. I've seen firsthand how families are pushed farther from jobs, spending hours on buses or in traffic, how children fall behind in school when they change districts mid-year because rent went up again, how neighbors lose their cohesion when people are forced to leave. Investing in affordable housing doesn't just address a crisis, it reduces long-term costs across the state budget. When people are stably housed, they are healthier, their children perform better in school, and interactions with emergency services and the criminal justice system decrease, freeing up public dollars and improving outcomes across the board. ACA 4 is a solution we desperately need. It creates stable funding, 5% of the general fund for 10 years, while protecting priorities like education and reserves. It's strategic and accountable with a statewide investment plan and outcome metrics. And most importantly, it funds what works: supportive housing, permanent housing, and services that keep people housed. This measure isn't about just producing more units. It's about restoring dignity and stability. It's about ensuring that kids like I, who didn't have what a lot of other folks can have, don't feel like that they don't matter. That seniors aren't facing homelessness for the first time in their lives. That working families don't have to move out of California just to find a place they can afford. This is about justice. This is our only chance this year to deliver at the scale that matches the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else here in support of this measure?
Hi, my name is Janice Barker, and I'm here from the Youngstown Senior Mobile Home Park in Petaluma, and I strongly support this bill.
I'm Angie Cruz, as a previous homeless services provider, resident of naturally occurring affordable housing, and Young Democrats of Sonoma County. I support this bill.
Pastor Robin Hood of Allen Chapel AME Church here in Sacramento, California. I'm a strong supporter of this bill.
All right. Is there anybody here in opposition to this ACA? Not seeing anyone. All right, bring it back to the committee. Ms. Wicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the author for bringing this bill forward. As you may recall, I did the initial stab at this. So I just appreciate your leadership, your commitment to this issue. I know that you wear your heart on your sleeve and you care deeply about our communities that are experiencing these issues. I want to thank those who testified and for you sharing your personal experience. It really is important for us lawmakers to hear that. So thank you for expressing that. And I'd love to make a motion to move the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I would also like to thank the author, of course, for bringing this. It is important that we should be spending way more of our state budget on number one priority for so many California households in California, and this is a straightforward way of doing so. I would love to be as a co-author, and I wish you luck in your next committee, which I know is very tough.
Mr. Patterson.
Well, thanks. Thank you. Well, first of all, to your witness, I really enjoyed hearing about your story, and look at you now. You're sitting in the state capitol testifying next to a legislator, on a very important bill. Not that I didn't really consider my life growing up to be like hard or anything, but a lot of the things that you said, resonated with me. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with my mom's was a single mom of two. I shared a bed with my brother where he slept on the pillow and then I slept the other way. So like his feet were always in my face. We didn't have a car. She's a waitress, and she's a waitress to this day living in affordable housing. I think a lot of I agree with my colleague, Assemblymember Lee, that I think that we ought to be spending a lot more on housing programs that work. I do have, unfortunately, serious concerns about putting it on the ballot and requiring 5% of the general fund revenue to be spent on that. Because I actually know of an institution that could do that every year. We happen to be sitting in that building. That we could actually do that as a legislature, and I think there's a reason why we don't, and I think it's because it's hard to do, but I think, I would stand with the author and say, hey, look, I'm committed to finding ways we can spend more money in the budget on housing. In fact, a Republican supported the housing bond just a few weeks ago. So now I'm going to get in trouble with that from my Assembly Republican leader. But so I can't support this today. And I just wanted to put it out there that, I kind of agree with, the premise of where you're going. I just chipping away at our budget problem at this situation. I think it's kind of hard and requiring it to be spent in perpetuity, the 5% in perpetuity, I believe, right?
10 years.
I thought it's a 10-year
Just
plan.
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for addressing that. So thank you.
Ms. Quicksilver.
I want to appreciate the author and the speakers who spoke. This issue has been talked about as long as I've been here, which is now 11 years. And many times when we hear pieces of legislation, they don't always make it all the way through. And you can see by the analysis that there's been other attempts and sometimes joint attempts and attempts on top of each other. For example, the housing bond that's going through. But it certainly is important that we continue to voice and to state how important this investment is. Looking at California's budget and spending just a tiny percentage of it really shows where our values are. Out of all of these years, I've heard so many requests, particularly now that I work in the budget, for various programs and support for whether it's health or education. And I fundamentally believe, as an educator myself, if we invested in housing, we'd be able to invest much less in other areas, because so many of our areas in society that are causing health issues, chronic health issues, that are causing food insecurity, that are causing education, come from not being housed. When students or families don't know where they're sleeping at night, or are couch surfing, or don't have stability, all of these other issues that relate to incarceration, that relate to laws like Prop 36 that we just said, it's all interrelated. And having a stable foundation to live and to understand that that's your foundation. It's like food, water, and a place to live. That's really the very, very basic. And if we can't do that very fundamental, we'll continue to see skyrocketing health prices. We'll continue to see the shelters that we are spending money. We'll continue to have to spend dollars on everything from public safety. So I not only support this, would like to be a co-author on it. And again, it's a statement of our values. And we have to learn to prioritize in California the very basics: food, water, and shelter. Then everything else will start to move. It doesn't mean we don't have investments other places, but it means when you do those basic things, then the dollars will be less in other areas. And it's just a very simple math equation, but we don't seem to get that. And I fear that, again, these efforts will have to be repeated. And I know I can count on you and others to continue this drum until we can get it right.
All right, you may close.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much to my colleagues. Many people have been touting California's now distinction of being the fourth largest economy in the world. I say, who cares? Who cares? Because as our economy is growing, suffering is growing. And that shouldn't be the case. And it's time for us as a legislature to deliver for the people on something that is essential for human existence. And so no matter what we do, being able to put a source of funding on auto, something that we cannot touch, whether it's the bond or whether it's a constitutional amendment, we need to deliver for our constituents. And we keep trying to say why or come up with excuses why we can't. California has the money. We just don't have the priorities. And so this is about setting the priority. So with that, my colleagues, I want to thank you so much for your support. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.